KayFabe Smark Podcast. Welcome to the KayFabe Smark Podcast with Eric Todd and Brian Rampa, your smart mark source for news and opinions on the world of professional wrestling.
Hey, what is going on, internet wrestling world? This is the KayFabe Smark Podcast. This is episode 96. 96 in the books. This is April 1st. Hanging out with you on a Friday because, well, Fridays are just much better, man. No work tomorrow. Just can hang out on the internet and talk about pro wrestling. Make sure you guys get on over to all the social media where we talk about pro wrestling on the Instagram and the Twitter and not the Twitter, we ain't doing the Twitter yet, but the Instagram, the TikTok, Facebook, all of the likes right there. But before we get into professional wrestling, let's shoot it over to Mr. Eric Todd. Eric, what is happening in your world?
Oh, you know, same old, Brian. And figure today is a good day to tell them it's as good as day as any. This right here, Brian, for the KayFabe Smark audience, is months of work, months of negotiations, and I have the pleasure of telling you today that the KayFabe Smark podcast has signed a deal with Conrad Thompson.
The
podcast is moving to Alabama. We will be with the likes of Tony Schiavone. We will be with the likes of Jim Ross. We will be with the likes of Eric Bischoff. We are joining the Conrad Thompson family, and it took a lot of negotiating, but we finally hit the big time, folks.
We will be on ad-free shows. You can find us there. We'll put out the shows early. You can get them premium. Join us on ad-free shows, and then all the back catalog will always be free. Always be free. But make sure you join us on ad-free shows with Conrad Thompson. He's going to be the third man in on the show. Big news. You guys didn't see this one coming.
No, and you shouldn't have, because wah, wah, wah. April Fools.
April Fools, bitches. We're still sitting here talking about wrestling at our own houses. Even if the show moved to Alabama. Even if we did sign with Conrad, bitch, I ain't moving to Alabama. Fuck you, Jack. Do this shit on the internets. April Fools.
Google Meet.
Google Meet.
Google this meat, Conrad.
Well,
but,
kicking off April Fools. So, yes, how's your life going? What's going on? Anything new in your world before we dig into the likes of AEW and professional wrestling itself?
Oh, no, not really. Just chilling, Brian. Yeah, that's about it. Life has been status quo over here. I kind of wish that wasn't an April Fool's joke. We could get something going on with the old Conrad on ad-free shows. And but man, we just work, we watch wrestling, and there's a lot of wrestling coming up this weekend. So
yeah,
our plates are full.
Yeah, man, there's if you really give a damn, there's what do we got? SmackDown. Then you've got AEW Rampage. You got Ring of Honor show going on tonight. You've got the whole, if you really want to dig deep into it, the whole GCW collective, as they've got like multiple shows and like streaming shows, like panels and all kinds of stuff going on. And then 2 nights of WrestleMania followed by a Monday Night Raw. Like, it is just pro wrestling extravaganza going down starting really tonight.
Yeah, you and I were talking about the Ring of Honor show. Both of us obviously want to see the Briscoes taking on FTR. We'll have to catch the highlights of that one. But yeah, there was a big, I guess the Monday Night Raw. I didn't watch it, Brian, but the go-home show for Monday Night Raw was pretty interesting. So I'm sure the go-home show for WrestleMania show for SmackDown should be interesting too. So there's going to be tons of clips and tons of highlights to watch. And you and I, we're going to have to, bring the lozenges, bring the
You almost said
Ricolas
Rikishi.
next week.
Bring Rikishi's Ricolas.
Because we're going to have a lot of talking to do next week.
Yeah, and, well, before we get into all that, do we have any news coming out of this major wrestling weekend going down? WrestleMania weekend, Ring of Honor, all the nonsense happening.
Well, the dirt sheet's been a little quieter than normal because we got a lot of stuff coming up, as we said, but we will pop right into the news as soon as you hit that ticker.
It's WrestleMania weekend. We've got the first Ring of Honor show after their shutdown. And AEW had wrestling like normal. So here we go. Let's see what Eric found in the news. What you got?
All right. So this story has been bouncing around for shit. I think it's officially been years now that this story's been bouncing around. WWE is working towards having Roman Reigns taking on his cousin, The Rock, at WrestleMania 39 in Los Angeles. And pretty much it's just coming out that WWE really wants this to happen. Dave Meltzer reported that the situation with The Rock is exactly what you think. The belief is that The Rock wants to do the match with Roman Reigns, but because of he's such a busy guy, he's got so much going on between acting, the XFL, his Instagram, all that shit The Rock's doing, juicing them quads and glutes. The Rock just might not have time to do WrestleMania 39 with Roman Reigns, but the belief is he wants to.
Well, let's be honest. The right price, and he will put other projects aside and then be able to focus on said WrestleMania. Because we know The Rock, I don't know him personally, but what I'm saying is we know The Rock's work ethic, and if he's not going to do it and do it right 100%, and that means putting in a couple weeks pre-WrestleMania, putting in WrestleMania, and probably 1 to 2 shows following WrestleMania to continue the story, well, I'm not going to do it. He's not going to show up on, next year on WrestleMania Sunday and go, ta-da, goodbye, and that's it. He's not going to cut promos from here and there and mail them in. He's going to have to be there, be in the mix, and be a pro wrestler again for, 2 months. And if he can't do that, he's not going to do it. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, and I think we all see the writing on the wall. The only thing that's kind of flat about the situation is everybody knows there's no way The Rock's winning that match. It's just going to be solely to raise Roman's stock even more. And so, yeah, even though we all know The Rock's going to lose that match, we're all dying to see it.
Sure. Yeah. I don't see it unless they do a back-to-back thing like they did with John Cena that year, or those 2 years. I forget the WrestleManias, but where The Rock actually won and Cena lost, and then The Rock was, had the belt and he was over on him and blah, 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 and then comes back for a rematch later on for the next, WrestleMania. They did those back-to-back. So unless they're going to do something like that, but again, it's been done. It hasn't been that long. I don't know. Interesting way. They could do a couple things, but odds are, you're right, The Rock's taking the, laying on his back.
All right. Also, some wrestling that's going on today that you and I failed to mention, Brian. Also tonight on the Peacock is the 2022 WWE Hall of Fame ceremony.
Yes.
And probably right around this time, because it is pretty much 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern time over here. The Steiner brothers are being inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. And, although I'm not surprised they're getting inducted, they just weren't even on my radar of someone that might get inducted this year, Brian.
They're one of those guys, I'll be honest with you, that I forgot they weren't already in it. Like, it just would have made sense that if you would have told me, hey,
Right.
The Steiners are already in there, I'd have went, well, yeah, duh. But then they find out they weren't, which is good that they finally got in and getting their recognition. You can't put just Rick in. So he's in good with the company, right? His son's in there. He's been at shows, etc., and so on. Scotty's been the issue. For 66 2/3 of their career. So I'm glad they've cleared up whatever it is and, push that aside. Maybe Braun Breaker used his little stroke that he's got now and said, "Sure, I'll go up here and I'll do this and I'll be your guy, but you got to put my dad and uncle in. You just got to do this thing."
Yeah, and with the spotlight that they're going to be shining on the signers, there's going to be, with them being in the Hall of Fame, they're going to use WWE is going to use that opportunity to sell more merch.
Oh, sure.
Some Steiner Brothers T-shirts and whatnot. I don't know where we might be a couple steps away, maybe one step away from old Braun Breaker changing his name to Braun Steiner and just using that to just make everybody more over.
That would be the best name change that the WWE could come up with. We've discussed previous name changes that they've had, and those all sucked. So maybe they could do a good one and really just change his name and get the Steiner name in there where it belongs. But what the hell do I know?
We had some heat over the week between MJF and his boss, Tony Khan, Brian, because MJF took it upon himself to do an interview with Ariel Helwani, and this interview was not cleared by AEW PR. Now, that is the news that's being reported, is Tony Khan was a little pissed off that MJF didn't run this interview by PR, but we think that the heat came because MJF was very candid, very open, still healing it up, still keeping it kayfabe, but he was releasing information such as his contract expires on January 1st, 2024, that he and Bruce Pritchard are very close, that he is leaning one way between AEW and WWE, but it wouldn't be smart for him to say which way he's leaning. And it might surprise you which way he's leaning. So he's not saying shit, but he's saying a whole bunch at the same time. Yeah. And saying there's no way he's going to re-sign his contract earlier than the expiration date because he's waiting for the best deal. So very open MJF on the Ariel Helwani podcast, pissing off old Tony Khan.
But I thought AEW was the land of freedom. The land of, you want to go work an indie show in a high school gym and have your face shoved into a dildo? I mean, go right ahead, Marco Stunt. Do what you got to do. You want to go ahead and wrestle on this indie show, or you want to go do this and you want to do that? You just have to be to Dynamite on Wednesdays. That's it. Nobody cares. Yeah. We don't care here at AEW. We care. We care. All of a sudden, we care. Make up your mind.
Yeah, MJF was going hard, man. He mentioned shit like that. He said, when I get in the ring, I get in the ring to win. I don't get in the ring to show off and do gymnastics. And, he basically just put it out there, and he took a dump all over a whole bunch of AEW talent, again, without saying names, that just want to go out there and do spots. And he said he's there to make money. And that's what he does. And he is straight up and saying he's one of the best workers in the game and probably the best talker in the game right now.
Talker, ain't no question. I don't, pick your show. Pick a SmackDown, Ring of Honor, Jason, anything. It don't matter. AEW, he's got that going for him, hands down, as one of the tops in the game there. As for the worker, I mean, I think he's great in the ring as well. And he understands the psychology of professional wrestling, not just backflip, dive, cut myself in the forehead, and bow.
Right. And you mentioned during that little story, the dildo gobbler himself, Marco Stunt. Marco Stunt, sadly, Brian, to the dismay of AEW fans everywhere, will not be renewing his contract in May. His contract will expire in May. We haven't seen Marco since October of 2021 when he got a concussion. But apparently Christopher Daniels, who is the head of talent relations, informed Marco Stunt that due to budget cuts, they will not be renewing Marco Stunt's contract.
How much is Marco Stunt getting paid?
That's what I'm saying. So, to piggyback on that, AEW just signed Tony Storm. I'm sure Tony Storm's making more money than Marco Stunt.
Damn, Marco's broke the bank, huh? So they tell Marco, listen, guy, budget cuts, things are tough. We're going to have to cut you. But you're signing 2 new guys over the course of the next 3 weeks. I understand. That's where the budget got tight. They needed more money, and you suck.
So, we all saw the writing on the wall. This one, I assumed his contract had already expired. But this is going to be the season, Brian, where contracts are coming up left and right, and we're going to see a lot of this indie talent that
hit the
Tony
indie
Khan
bricks.
just let the EVPs were like, sign this guy, sign this guy, sign this guy, sign this guy. We're going to see those contracts just fall into the wayside.
Sure. I think you're going to have a handful of them stay. You know, let's face it, Jungle Boy, he's in like Flynn. He's over like Rover, AEW. They're making money. They bought him a song. The kid's in. His tag team's over. It's happening. That's going to stick. But, you know, your, what was that one guy from Canada? Luther? Serpentico?
Yeah.
Who's a couple of these other fucking jobbers? You know, they're just going to bye, see ya. Like, you're out.
Yeah, the Sunny Kisses, the Fago del Sols.
Joey we already spoke of. He's out. Janela, he's hit the bricks.
Yeah, so a lot of these guys that started out with the company, and I think Tony Khan was heavily influenced by the guys who were already signed, just getting their buddies in. You know, come on, man, let my friend get a job. He'll get over.
He'll get over.
Just
he's good. Yeah,
and then to piggyback on that, I just mentioned that in the Marco Stunt story. Former NXT wrestler and current OnlyFans superstar Tony Storm is now all elite, and she made her debut on the episode we'll be talking about tonight, the March 30th edition of AEW Dynamite.
Yeah, Tony Storm. I was surprised to hear that. It wasn't not surprised, like blown away. Like I saw some stuff on Instagram, and it was like, "Don't swipe if you don't want a spoiler." You know, new debut on AEW, and I was like, whatever. Went for the swipe, and it was like Tony Storm, and I was like, that was the big like no spoil type thing, but didn't blow me away. If it would have been like Hulk Hogan when I flipped it, it would have been like, what the fuck? Like,
right?
It's something like
it
that.
was one that there's a handful of wrestlers that when they leave the WWE conglomerate, if you will, you're pretty much like, it's only a matter of time until they're black and gold.
Sure, and just wait for the contract to, you know, their whatever, you know, their non-compete clause to tick over, and then there you go. You're going to see them pop up. Now, I was surprised. Is that her name? Tony Storm?
I don't know.
I mean, she rolled with it, right? She got to
stumped me right there.
But she just got to straight up come over and use it. It wasn't like all of a sudden she was like Storm. And she came out like, because, you know, they always got to like manipulate it, right? And it was she just came out. She's just Tony Storm. So it's like maybe she just owned that was her shit going into WWE, and she kept that.
It's Antoinette Thunder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's Anthony Thunderstorm.
And speaking of names, Brian, you segued right into this one. WWE has signed over a couple of trademark names to AEW wrestlers now. Well, it says AEW wrestlers, but this, we'll get to it in a second. WWE has signed over the name Matt Hardy to none other than Matt Hardy.
Well, how nice of him to let him use his actual God-given, parents wrote it on a birth certificate fucking 60 years ago name. How polite.
And then this one, even though the report says AEW Superstars, I didn't know she was in AEW. Apparently, WWE has signed over the rights to Mia Yim. And let's see, the report states that WWE had owned the Matt Hardy name trademark since 2018, but handed it back over to Hardy on March 7th. The company held the name Mia Yim since August of 2019 and signed it back over to Mia Yim on February 18th, and that was several weeks after her no-compete clause expired.
Well,
Is she in AEW?
I
Seems
think
Keith
that's
Lee would have made a statement.
I think it's a matter of time type situation that Mia Yim will be there since Keith Lee's in. She left. Keith Lee's there. What are you gonna do? I guess Keith Lee's still there. He's there, right? He wrestled twice. he's been there for about 2 months now, and he's wrestled 1.5 times. So I think he's still in AEW.
Yeah, I think they're giving away the Willie Hobbs, Keith Lee match away for free.
Oh yeah, well they'll screw that pooch right in the ass.
Yeah. And that, Brian, was the news.
That's the news. Let's go ahead and get out of this. Tony Storm, Matt Hardy gets his name back. Man, just how nice. They're allowed to sell Matt Hardy merchandise now with his own name on it. Son of a bitch. There you go. That's the KayFabe Smark news. Going into WrestleMania weekend. And now, my friends, it's time.
Let's play Overrated or Underrated with Eric Todd.
Let's play that. Let me pop up my notes here. We are going to talk about celebrities at WrestleMania because, well, it's always that little hot topic. Celebrities involved with WrestleMania. Let's start out with a big one. Mr. T, overrated or underrated at WrestleMania. You can go with WrestleMania 1 with Hulk Hogan. You can go WrestleMania 2 when he boxed Roddy Piper. Any way you want to take it. How you looking at Mr. T?
We're going to go with the original WrestleMania Mr. T. Mr. T, once again, teaming up with Hulk Hogan to take on Paul Orndorff and Roddy Piper. And this, Brian, this was a huge moment in wrestling history. This was brought wrestling into the mainstream. Everybody loved Mr. T. I'm sure around that time I was eating Mr. T cereal out of a Mr. T bowl with and I was watching the A-Team. You know, this is a long time ago, but Mr. T was the man back in the 80s. So bringing him in was an incredibly smart decision by Vince McMahon. And although Piper wasn't a big fan of him or working with him, it still was an underrated appearance. Mr. T, WrestleMania, underrated.
Yes. And I heard the stories that in WrestleMania 2 that he couldn't get T to hit him when they were boxing, and that's why he threw the chair at him. Like, that was all just Piper going off script back in the day, right? When you could do things like that. And he threw the chair at him and was like, punch me! Like, he was just screaming how he was terrible. But anyways, that's just my little 2 cents on that. Overrated or underrated, WrestleMania 3, Alice Cooper rocking with Jake the Snake Roberts at the Silver Dome in Pontiac.
Brian, I was a little young at that point. I know I was just talking about WrestleMania 1, but WrestleMania 3, I didn't care about Alice Cooper. I was like 6.
Yeah. Like, he wasn't a cartoon character on cereal bowls. It was like, fuck him.
And when you go back and watch it, it was the Alice Cooper appearance was overshadowed by everything else that was going on at WrestleMania 3, especially with Hogan taking on Andre. So that appearance was a little bit flat, and it was cool that he was there. He was a big rock star from Detroit, and WrestleMania 3 taking place in Pontiac, Michigan. So it was cool he was there, but anyone who got excited over that appearance, I'm going to have to say it was overrated.
Yeah, the only thing they had going for it on this was that, Alice Cooper and Jake actually, made sense. So it wasn't too off, but it wasn't like they put him with all of a sudden you got Alice Cooper coming out with Coco Beware, and you're like, he likes snakes, he likes birds. Oh,
Ow,
here we go. Overrated, underrated. Lawrence Taylor taking on Bam Bam, WrestleMania 11.
Man, the hype around this one was pretty big. I want to say LT was already was he already retired at this point? You're not going to know. You don't watch football. But
I didn't even know he was in football when he came out and started talking about. I was like, who's this guy going to fight Bam Bam?
But old Lawrence Taylor was a huge name in the football world, still is. And him coming over to WWE to wrestle Bam Bam, they got a little heat between them going on there. It got a lot of hype, but ended up just being like, nah, it's a football player coming over to wrestle. And he did pretty good, but still is an overrated appearance.
Yeah, and really, if you want to know what overrates it for me, is they made that match the goddamn main event.
Main event. Yep.
That was the main event of WrestleMania. You know, it could have been an opener mid-show, but no, they put that as the main. I mean, they were selling tickets on that alone. Pay-per-views and tickets. That was it. That was the thing that was holding it together. You go, Bam Bam Bigelow and Lawrence Taylor are what are holding your pay-per-view together. Yikes.
And usually by the end of WrestleMania, you're just like, whoa, my mind is blown. Da, 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 da. At the end of that one, it was just like.
No, because you had your championship matches for that year and everything. And then you were like, oh yeah, don't forget, we still got this circus sideshow that's going to happen. Let's talk about our buddy. Not really our buddy. It's just fun to say. Let's talk about WrestleMania 8. And I think he was involved in a few others, but this list that I was looking at just had him down for WrestleMania 8. Guest interviewer and commentator and everything else that he had did, Regis Philbin.
Regis was a huge wrestling fan. That was pretty low key, but Jim Cornette talks about Regis a lot. And Regis knew a lot about wrestling, and he loved it, and he appreciated it, and he sold his ass off anytime any of the wrestlers were on Regis and Kelly, or not Regis and Kelly, I'm sorry, Regis and Kathy Lee. But yeah, unless you were 75 years old, the fact that Regis Philbin was going to be on WrestleMania didn't really open any more eyes or bring any more people into the pay-per-view. Like I said, strictly at the retirement homes. So as cool as Regis was, man, him being at WrestleMania is a little overrated.
Yeah, the only reason I knew is because my mom would tell me or my grandma would tell me, so-and-so is going to be on Regis and Kathy Lee. And they would record it for me because I'd be at school, right? So they record the Undertaker. They'd record the episode and have the Undertaker's appearance on there, or Hulk Hogan or the Macho Man, and I could watch him when I came home from school. But then when he was on wrestling, I was like, oh, I don't care. I didn't care the reverse way, right? I cared when the wrestlers were on his show, not the other way. And then our last one here, overrated, underrated, former President Donald Trump getting down WrestleMania 23 in Detroit for the Battle of the Billionaires, hair versus hair. You've got Umaga taking on Bobby Lashley, their representatives. Bobby Lashley representing Donald Trump, Umaga representing Vince. The whole match going down, loser shaves the head. Donald Trump, WrestleMania 23, overrated, underrated.
Oh, man. So at the time, Donald Trump was basically, mainstream-wise, known for his Apprentice TV show. Wasn't a presidential candidate at that point. His recognition and his notoriety wasn't really nearly as big as it is now. So kind of looking back on it, it was an overrated appearance there. We knew old Donnie wasn't going to let that flock of seagulls hairdo go at WrestleMania 23 in Detroit. But, to some people, he was a big star, but I just thought it was just kind of like, you and I were there.
Right.
Good friend of the show, Andy, was there. And him being there was just kind of like, another celebrity. So overrated on my end.
Yeah, and you got to remember, too, this wasn't the first time we've seen Donald Trump somewhat involved with professional wrestling, right? WrestleManias 4 and 5 were at Trump Plaza, in Atlantic City. So, and he was there involved, not necessarily involved, but he was there. So seeing Donald Trump involved with professional wrestling wasn't necessarily like shocking at the moment. And again, nobody thought he'd shave his head. Now, if they would have shaved his head, we'd be having a different story.
Oh, that would be the most underrated appearance of all time if that mop went missing.
Because like I'm saying, that's that hair is like, that's iconic. So yeah. And one last one for you, because it hasn't happened yet, so it's going to be hard to judge. Overrated, underrated. Johnny Knoxville wrestling, well, tomorrow, I believe, at WrestleMania. Taking on Sami Zayn.
We saw Johnny Knoxville at the Royal Rumble, and you got to give it to the guy. The guy wants to fit in. He wants to work hard. He sells, and he'll let you beat the shit out of him. But it's just look at him. He's just a 55-year-old skinny, lanky, beaten guy in like sweatpants, and he has broken bones and his genitalia has been ripped in half from doing the jackass stuff. So it's just kind of like, he's just there to promote the movie. Fart in the wind.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Well, my friends, that's overrated, underrated, and I think we'll move on and tear apart and talk about this wild AEW show.
Well, I got to stick on that subject. You brought up Johnny Knoxville, and I didn't cover this in the news because it really wasn't newsworthy, but I did come across a video of old Logan Paul. I think Logan Paul is also wrestling at WrestleMania, and I saw footage of him practicing at a training facility, and that dude's putting in work. Like the Paul brothers, love them or hate them, whatever they're dedicated to, they're freaking dedicated to. And this dude was on the top rope. This is a YouTube star, everybody. On the top rope, did a frog splash onto nobody. Did the whole Eddie Guerrero legs in, elbows in, spread out, and landed flat on his face and popped right back up. So I don't know. I couldn't do that. I've been a wrestling fan for all my life, and I don't think I could do a frog splash off onto nothing, Brian.
Yeah, that would be pretty impressive. I'm gonna have to go find that video and check that out. I'm sure it's on the IG or something along those lines, and see where Mr. Paul be frog splashing the Invisible Man. So
yeah, but definitely check that out. And then we can move on to this week's episode of AEW Dynamite.
Oh, was it ever Dynamite? Boy, howdy. This was Dino Snooze Fest. This was a slow one. This was usually at the end of the day, like, we come on here to talk about professional wrestling, and then we come on here and, well, we tear it apart. That's what we do. That's part of what you tear it, and then we'll at the end of it go, it was a pretty good show, though. I'll be honest with you guys. Let's break it down early. I don't know how it wasn't like a bad show. It just was like, what do we watch?
I fell asleep. So you got two ends of the spectrum. I fell asleep multiple times during this thing. I had to go back today and watch the DVR to see what I missed. But you go on the Squared Circle subreddit, there was legitimate people saying, I don't know, this may have been the best episode of Dynamite they've put out.
The people on there, like, they just watched WrestleMania 13, Brett versus Stone Cold with the bloody face and the sharpshooter, the changing of the guards. It was AEW Wednesday Night Dynamite. It was at best. It was, and I give any wrestling and any show these moments. I don't judge them upon these moments, because you have to have these linking moments. You have to have something that takes you from A to B, and sometimes there has to be something in between. And that happens. There's you have to, get some things out of the way and do a little cleaning house, if you will. But, it is what it is, and it happened, and it still wasn't, it was just boring.
For Christ's sake, our main event was Andrade and Darby Allin in a mud show match. So, yeah, we'll get to that momentarily. But we're going to kick things off with CM Punk and Max Caster. The most exciting thing about this match was Max Caster's rap, which is slow and clunky, pretty much just like Max Caster in the ring, but he was very topical this week, Brian. He brought up Will Smith, um, and then he went old school, talked about CM Punk taking Z-Packs and shit in his pants. Max Caster was on point with his roasts this week.
Now, do you think Max Caster is good at rapping, or do you think his lines are being fed to him through his headphones that he wears to the ring? Do you think it's like a repeat and he's just repeating it?
No, I think Max Caster does have a passion for music, so I think these are his own lines, but it's just the delivery.
Sure.
They come off as, the Cat in the Hat slow rap that is fine when you're kicking a freestyle, but we have the curtain has come down, the fourth wall has been broken. These lines are pre-written days in advance and ran through Tony Khan for approval before they make them onto TV.
Because he got in trouble once.
And then you got John Cena just validating this shit by doing an interview, and they asked John Cena about Max Caster, and he says that he is doing what I did, but even better, because he comes out to a live audience and he can stay on beat and rap with music. And John did his a cappella.
Oh, so that a real boom bat. Their music isn't some intricate thing here. It is literally boom boom boom. If you can count to four,
it's 3 layers maybe.
If you can count to 4, you can follow this along. Boom bat, boom boom bat, a boom a bat, and then you just say that CM Punk took a Z-Pack and pooped his pants.
Yes. But one thing I'll give to Max Caster on this one is it takes balls to be CM Punk's next opponent after that match he put on with Dax Harwood last week. So props to Max Caster for going out there and attempting this, but this was essentially that match on easy mode. There was no intricate moves whatsoever. They were all simple moves, no counters, no reversals. It was just CM Punk going out there, knowing this guy has a very basic move set and just trying to make him look as good as possible.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing when I was watching it, we went from 180 degrees from last week's opening match of CM Punk taking on Dax to this opening match taking on Max. Dax and Max. He only fights people. He's going to fight the Axe, Cracks.
He's got Axe from Demolition is actually coming back next week.
He's going to see. They just signed him. That's why they had to get rid of Marco Stunt.
But man, this was a snooze fest, Brian. Max Caster, if you can sell, that's a huge part of wrestling, but Punk was working the shit out of Max Caster's left arm on Wednesday night, and Max Caster wasn't selling that arm at all unless it was being worked at the time.
Yeah.
And it's just like, come on, man, you got to get some of the basics down if you even want to be thought of in that top echelon.
Yeah, it was just moment to moment. Where are we at? Scene 1, Act 1, we're doing this, and this, and then next, and then this, and this, and forget about what happened in the storytelling of the whole match together, right?
Yeah. And Punk ends up winning after a pile driver and an Anaconda Vice, and I had to reflect on this match that if it was in a vacuum, if this match was just on TV, no context, last week didn't exist, it would just kind of be a shrug your shoulders, an average AEW match. But because so recently, Punk put on that match with Dax, that fucking masterpiece last week, this match just looked like complete and utter garbage. 0 stars is what this match would get in my book.
Yeah, they peaked and valleyed, right? So they peaked real hard last week with that Dax and then CM Punk, and then just crashed for the same thing, to open it up again. You're going, all right, here we go. They'll CM Punk opening it up. He's coming out first. The music's kicking. The crowd's singing along. We're hype. And then Max comes out, and ain't nothing happening. And really, this was just to get to this. I mean, I don't want to say it was to get to this, but they had to have CM Punk come out. And they're not really going to waste CM Punk these days on just having him come out and talk, as it seems. Right. So they've used this to really get in there. Then next thing you know, Tony Schiavone is in the ring, and he's loosely interviewing CM Punk and stating, last week, CM Punk, you were signaling that you had a title around your waist. What does that mean?
What does that mean, Brian? What could that possibly mean?
The best is Punk was like, come on, Tony. Don't be an idiot. You know what that means.
So, yeah, Punk just makes it official in this loosely based interview here with Tony Schiavone that he wants the AEW championship.
Yeah,
I think we figured that out last week.
I never didn't think that CM Punk wouldn't want that. He is a former champion, albeit not with AEW, but nonetheless, he has still been a world champion in professional wrestling. Ring of Honor, and then what's that other company he worked with for a while? Oh, yeah, right, the WWE.
Oh, shit, yeah.
I forgot. So, I never took him as not wanting that. I never took Daniel Bryan as not wanting that. Bryan Danielson, whatever the fuck we call him. Same thing with Mox and so forth, like Jericho. These guys, you come in and go, they're in the title picture. Duh.
Not Cody Rhodes, though.
No, he'll eliminate himself fucking 90 seconds into the opening show. That's what he's going to do WrestleMania Night 2. He's going to come out and go, I'm here. I don't want a title. What?
And then we go, we weren't lying, Brian. Snooze, you lose on this one.
I think we got a title.
We go from Schiavone and CM Punk to Marvez, MJF, and FTR in the back. FTR does not want to be involved in the MJF Wardlow feud. They are in between. They're friends with Wardlow. They're friends with MJF. We see Wardlow posters being put up. He's banned from all AEW events. And MJF stirring the pot, telling FTR that Wardlow used to talk a lot of shit about those guys. And it appears that FTR is a little frustrated with their buddy MJF.
Sure. Personally, this is the best thing that can happen, is they can just stir this thing up and break apart this whole faction. Not that there's nothing wrong with all the individual parts of the faction. There would actually be nothing wrong with the faction itself if it was a faction. If they had a T-shirt that said The Pinnacle. For 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks in a row, they won't mention The Pinnacle. And they'll just be, FTR will be around. They'll be doing their thing. All of a sudden, they're in Mexico. They're coming back to AAA champions. MJF is focused on CM Punk. Wardlow is doing a powerbomb symphony. We haven't seen the, what the hell's the other guy that wears the stupid beanie on his head? I'm having a brain fart.
Spears?
Yeah, you haven't seen Ari Spears in 3 weeks. Like he all of a sudden his new gimmick is wearing a beanie and a suit with no shirt underneath, and then he disappears. But nobody mentions the Pinnacle, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Whoa, we're still together." Are you? Because Max is a damn heel. There ain't no question. Maxwell, Jacob Friedman, MJF is a heel, and FTR's been on their own, and then they dumped their heel manager and really turned them kind of face. Not baby, but like they're in this weird, like, we could do whatever we want right now type era, or like type position in wrestling. So you're going, so how is this really a faction? So really, in my eyes, after all of that being said, get rid of the faction and just let these guys go all do what they do. Wardlow, he's going to be a star, done right. He has all the ingredients are there. If they do it right, he can be something big. Max, MJF, star already. FTR, if they just can cut the chains and let him go, stars. Ari Spears, he can go to Ring of Honor.
Right. You pretty much laid it out perfectly there. So the point of the Pinnacle was to kind of spread a little bit of MJF stardust to sprinkle it on to all these other guys. Well, Wardlow, he's done. He used what he needed to use of MJF. He is full on. Everyone's behind him. Everybody loves him. Babyface is all hell now. So Wardlow no longer needs MJF. FTR never needed MJF. They just, I suppose, Tony Khan just wanted somewhere to stick them, but they're fine on their own. The only person who still needs MJF to stay relevant is Shawn Spears.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you send him to Ring of Honor and you're good. These guys are fine on their own.
Yeah. The faction was built upon that old Four Horsemen style where it was like your star, your in-between star, your mid-card star, and your tag teams. So you could have multiple championships inside of one. We're going to have multiple championships inside of one faction. Problem is, they didn't never give any of those guys a title to be multiple champions. They didn't even have a single champion inside the faction. So if you're not going to do the faction thing the way the factions are done and have run-ins from everywhere, the Four Horsemen stuck together, right? This guy, that guy, and the other guy. But so I say dump this and move on with life. And I'm happy that it seems to be going that way.
I agree. And we are moving on to our next match of the night, Brian. We've got Jay Lethal taking on John Moxley.
Does your head hurt every time that Justin Roberts announces him? Like, is it not like it doesn't hurt my head from him saying it? I imagine the amount of pressure that he has to, like my throat, I can feel it in my throat, and the pressure inside my nose. I'm like, God, if I was to have to yell it like that, he's got to go like get a massage after he announces John Moxley. Like, boy, that's a whole body workout that he puts himself through.
Yeah, there's a small podcast out there called the Jim Cornette Experience, and it's Jim Cornette and Brian Last, and they have been saying for years that Justin Roberts is the worst ring announcer in the world, and I full on disagreed for a while. I just thought he's passionate. He's the dapper
yapper
douchebag or whatever the fuck they call him, and but man, he is so over the top. I'm getting so annoyed with him that I'm like, sure, whatever. Throw him in the worst announcer category. I don't give a fuck anymore.
To me, you know what it is? I think his announcing is fine. The over-the-top announcing does drive me nuts. But you know why it drives me nuts? And it drives me nuts just like a lot of AEW wrestling. AEW wrestling drives me nuts. Overdone.
Yeah.
I'll compare his announcing to a Tope Suicida.
I think you've made a fine comparison.
He
there,
does
Brian
not
Rampa.
need to be like, it's Wednesday Night Dynamite, and he's taking on Jay Lethal. Jay Lethal, take nothing away from the man. He deserves more than he's getting, but where he's at currently, he's just Jay Lethal. He's just Jay.
Right.
He ain't even that lethal.
You might as well call him Jason. Jason Harmful is what they should call him.
Jason, possibly dangerous if ingested. So just like save that for the pay-per-views. You do 4 a month, man. Build up that John Moxley match, and when John finally comes out, that fucking John Moxley. Not like because then what do you do at the pay-per-view? Like shoot yourself in the head? Like where do you go more? John Moxley. Blood spells John Moxley. Like.
Yeah. Save it for a hyped up match. Mid-card Wednesday night, free TV. There's you kind of compare it to when the crowd is super hyped to see somebody like Stone Cold returning after 20 years, CM Punk returning for the first time since 2014. The crowd their blood is boiling in anticipation to see this person. That's when you break out the vein popping in your forehead and go over the top. But this is, like you said, just a Wednesday night, and he's taking on mid-card Jason harmful and if ingested. Nobody's really too hype. You're not trying to get the crowd to explode on this one.
Yeah, so just move on. I can't believe we spent that much time on Justin Roberts announcing, but there was a match involved here. I guess it was a little more. That was a little more exciting than the match itself, because the match on itself had the writing was on the wall for the whole thing from top to bottom. But let's go ahead and break down a few spots here.
Yeah, we start out just exposing the clash of styles right off the bat. Jay Lethal wants to wrestle. John Moxley wants to brawl. And they just expose that right away instead of kind of finding a way for him to find some common ground here. Jay Lethal just, I don't know if this was his shtick in Ring of Honor too, but it just seems like he's becoming just one of the AEW boys, because he had to get some attention on him. He had to get the spotlight, because we get back-to-back tope suicidas from Jay Lethal here. And then from there, we're pretty much right into a John Moxley match. Just strikes and brawling, strikes and brawling.
Strikes and brawling. We're going inside the ring. We're outside the ring. We're here. We're there. We're everywhere. There's no rules apply. It's John Moxley. But what I was happy to see about this John Moxley match is that it was a John Moxley match, meaning it was a singles match. We have stepped aside from the tag team thing for a moment, which is good. I didn't want him to get lost in that. They even what's his name did sit out there. He sat up there with talking to the man in the mask. We had
Was it this match or the Bryan Danielson match?
Oh, you know what? It might have been Danielson.
I think it was the Danielson
So this
match.
was just him straight up alone, which was good. He had his Liverpool Brawling Club or whatever they call themselves now, their little crew, and there you go. So that was the good part for me about anything.
Yeah, there was a couple highlights in this match. As much as I'm not a huge fan of Moxley and just his same old, every single match is the same brawling, I do like that King Kong lariat he can throw, and then Jay Lethal, just being the worker that he is, can oversell that boy and get 35 flips out of it.
Turned himself inside out, right side in, and inside out again, and then boom. I like that there was some offense. There was some Jay Lethal offense. There was some Moxley had, clearly it was a John Moxley match. So there was some offense, though. There was some spots where you thought you didn't think he would lose, but some spots where you're like, God dang, they sold that well. They worked right up to it, right? Jay Lethal got all of the stuff in and just didn't have it to win. And it was telling a decent story. And as it wraps up here, I did like the fact that when it did wrap up with that King Kong lariat turning himself inside out 92 times, Moxley gets the win. Jay Lethal doesn't really oversell it so much afterwards. He's just like, he's there. Sometimes you get them, they hit these clotheslines and these lariats and such, and then, or the finishing moves, and it's like the person is dead. Overselling. Lethal was still selling that he was hurt. He was selling that he was frustrated. He was selling that he was angry. He was still selling a story. So it was all fine. I liked all of it. So I did enjoy that. That was a little different instead of just ending, John Moxley so strong that I died.
Yeah, I was a huge fan of Jay Lethal. I didn't really get into the Ring of Honor stuff, but in the early 2000s, 2008, 2009, that era, I was a huge Jay Lethal fan over in TNA. But so yeah, he's a consummate professional. Lethal got his comeback by thwarting a couple paradigm shifts. We did get to see Lethal lay in a suplex brainbuster and the Macho Man elbow drop and only get a 2 count on that. And then we get a little back and forth reversals here and there. Moxley squeezes in a quick paradigm shift for the win. So that made 100% sense on Jay Lethal's part not to oversell that paradigm shift, because his 2 finishing moves couldn't put off Moxley, but Moxley just snuck in 1 paradigm shift and there's a wrap on Lethal. It can't kill him. If it killed him, that would make Lethal look like shit.
Exactly. So overall, the ending was okay. I exactly saw it going the way it was. I wasn't thinking well, Jay Lethal could pull this one out.
Yeah, and at the end, you get the professionalism, the good sportsmanship. Mox and Jay Lethal end up shaking hands, and whatever.
I know
I
you,
get the camaraderie thing, but it just
the
what was
rom comedy.
the rom com here, but what was the fucking point? We're not getting a program between Jay Lethal and John Moxley.
Yeah. I did like the little bit of story that was being told with that, again, that Lethal was so frustrated that he turned away from him for a second.
Right.
Planting a seed, possibly, they could be working towards a big turn and a build for Jay Lethal. He came in, he was Jay Lethal, he was going to be da-da-da-da, here I am, I'm wearing a suit and I'm Jay Lethal, and I'm going to show everybody how to wrestle. Now he could get so mad that of his placement and his wrestling, and he hasn't been doing it right, and he does this big, wicked twist heel turn that they could take that character and push him right up, right? Or this is AEW, and it was just a random thing that happened in the ring.
And sadly, that's exactly what this is. Just a random occurrence.
God forbid we work off of something here and build towards it.
Yeah. Our next match here was FTR going up against the Ass Boys, Brian, the Gun Club, Austin and Colton Gunn.
This takes me right back to the whole rant we just had about MJF and the Pinnacle. So the Ass Boys, the Gun Club, whatever you want to call them, they are 100% heels.
Yes.
The Pinnacle, not FTR, we're putting the Pinnacle, right? That's a heel faction. But FTR's in there, who's popping and pretty over with the crowd on a face style. So this was a very confusing. I honestly, when the crowd was booing and such, you had to think about who they were booing or who they were,
Right.
popping for, and you're like, well, I guess it could be FTR they're booing. But then you come to look at it, and they're like, no. The Ass Boys were way more of the heel in this moment. But overall, it was just a very confusing story.
And you go to the internet wrestling community, and their big thing is, well, heels and baby faces clearly define lines between the two. They're not necessary anymore. They're just guys competing. We all know it's fake. We don't need heels and baby faces. But I think we can all admit that life is a lot better when there is clearly defined baby faces and heels. It because that confusion isn't there. Oh, wait, which ones are the dirty pricks that are, cheating? Oh, which ones, who do I need to cheer for? Who's the underdog here? This whole dynamic with the muddy water between heel and babyface, it's just confusing. Um, like for instance, the Gun Club, clearly the underdogs in this match, but you can't cheer for them because they're just pompous pricks, and they're just taunting and being
Sure.
over animated. So it's the waters are muddy there. Who the hell do I cheer for? Who should I boo?
Right. So, with that being said, you don't need that anymore, we can all admit UFC fans are not, boxing fans are not. Tyson was your heel. Conor
Right.
McGregor was your heel and your babyface, depending on the moment. Right?
Depending on who is fighting.
But
yeah.
you need the antagonist to make you buy it. I'm not watching every UFC fight for the sport, but I'm watching those big ones. I'm watching them big ones where it gets out of control, and there's somebody fights at the weigh-in, and this and that, and there's been all this shit talking on Twitter and everything else. That's professional wrestling. I don't care Dana White if it's what they want to say. That's pro wrestling, and he loves when that magic happens. Because you can't.
Yeah, there's a reason Conor McGregor goes on every channel possible and talks about I banged your wife, buddy, and all this shit. It's selling tickets.
It's a
And
gimmick.
there's a reason they do that, because heels and baby faces sell tickets.
Right. And let's just boil it back down to what happened coming up on a week ago. Chris Rock, Will Smith. Chris Rock, babyface. Will Smith, heel. Chris Rock selling tickets now to his comedy show. Like,
Literally.
it's just business. It's just the way it goes. And the reason we're off on this tangent is because who cared about FTR facing the Ass Boys? Love FTR, but what did this match mean? So let's talk about anything else, right?
And we talked about muddy waters and confusion, and we're going to get right into that in just a few minutes, Brian, because there's more confusion to come. Like I said before, the Gun Club pretty much just overly animated. They're trying to be DX 2.0, and they're trying a little
Really?
too hard.
So their dad is Billy Gunn. They're acting like them. And did you notice the print on their pants? Looked very Shawn Michaels like. It had the cow print style on it.
Yeah. So they're just kind of overdoing it, and they just need to tone it down a bit and be themselves. It's just too obvious. Cash Wheeler is on the outside at one point, beating up both of the Ass Boys, and just gets laid out by Billy Gunn. And Billy Gunn, man, he is at whatever age he is. He's got to be in his early to mid 50s. He is a beast.
Billy Gunn is jacked. Billy Gunn is tall, too. I don't know why in WWE, through the Attitude Era and everything else, I never realized how tall he is. Or is everybody in AEW that fucking short? I don't know which way it goes.
It's the latter. Everyone is tiny in AEW.
But
so you get a guy who's a legit 6'4", 6'5", like Billy Gunn. He's a goddamn monster.
Well, that's like when you see Shawn, too. Shawn Michaels, he was always, not always, but for so long he was next to, like, Diesel, Kevin Nash. He was with Scott Hall, who was even tall, right? And then you see Shawn, like, in real life, or you see him next to real humans, and you go, shit, he's tall.
Well, perfect example, Brian, is CM Punk. CM Punk in WWE was tiny.
Right.
Tiny guy. But then you and I met up with him in Chicago over the weekend for first All In.
We texted up real quick, and we were like, hey, Phil, what you doing? We made some plans. You know how it goes. I don't want to talk about it.
Us and Phil got together down at the old T-shirt factory in Chicago down there, and he's rather tall, and it's like, well, hell. When I met over in AEW, Punk's a tall son of a bitch.
Right, you're looking at and then when I met Scott Hall, I was like, holy shit, Scott Hall's a big guy, but standing next to Kevin Nash for all those years, standing next to all these big guys in the ring, and Sid and everybody, Hall wasn't looked at as being a huge dude, but in real life, it's a fucking monster. Billy Gunn is that same thing. He was undersold in WWE. He just looked like average boy in WWE. Then he comes over and he's so huge and jacked up and tall. You're like, Jesus, where'd this come from?
And when he lays out Cash Wheeler,
Billy Gunn
still got that professionalism. And man, this train keeps getting derailed, but that just made me think New Age Outlaws, Billy Gunn and Jesse James did a autograph signing at a comic book shop last week. And man, BG Brian James, whatever that. What's his real name? Brian what? Road Dog Jesse James.
Yeah.
He is showing his age.
Yeah.
He's starting to look more like Arn Anderson than the Road Dog.
Starting to look like his old man.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, Billy Gunn still holding on, and he can still do it with this crowd. But we go to commercial break shortly after the Billy Gunn incident there, and this is where the muddy waters come in, Brian. As we're going to commercial break, Excrement exclaims, This match between the number 5 ranked FTR and the number 1 ranked Gun Club will continue. Now, at that point, I'm like, all right, we're going to commercial. Obviously, Excrement fumbled his words. He mixed up these two teams. It's the only logical explanation, right, Brian? Am I right?
Oh, that's what you would be led to believe, but you're probably, I didn't do the math, but you're going to be 100% wrong, my friend.
And you are correct. We come back from commercial break, and Excalibur doubles down, saying that the Gun Club is the number 1 ranked tag team in AEW. How? You're always the yin to my yang, Brian. You can usually explain the what the IWC is thinking, the internet wrestling community, what the indie brain cells are going. You're a Bucks fan, you know, like bullshit floats. How Brian could this possibly be true? I am truly confused. How could the Gun Club be ranked number 1 right now in AEW?
I don't know. The Young Bucks haven't wrestled in several weeks, so you've got that going for them. But you have
Weren't they just at the loading docks begging for a match with Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, and they just got blown off because they weren't even ranked?
Yeah, Christian ignored them. Then they beat him up backstage. Like, they've been putting in that work on Rampage and putting that work in on Dark and getting those matches in.
I guess so. I guess you beat fucking Tony Baloney Cappuccini and the fucking Librarian enough times. It's like fucking playing a video game and going out there and chopping down trees for XP. You're just like farming points to get yourself ranked.
It's like you derailed. I had a funny one in my head, but now I lost it. Anyways, we'll continue on. This shit was I didn't believe it either. I didn't believe that they could be that, and it was just. But again, the rankings. It's just who they want to push that week is who's leading the rankings.
And Tony Khan has been a wrestling fan his entire life. I understand he's a mark. I understand that he just happens to be a billionaire's son who gets to live his dream and book professional wrestlers. But if you've been a lifelong fan for as long as he has, for as long as we have, wouldn't you have some sort of inclination to make a ranking system make sense in some aspect? It's just so off.
I would have rather have had them
off
just
the deep end.
I would have rather just had them forget about it. Like, rankings matter, and then like a year into it, they're just like, yeah, fuck that. We'll do the rankings thing. We just won't mention that anymore, and it just goes away.
Just be straight up. We like the Gun Club now, so yeah, we want to see them.
That's why
get
Vince
a tag team champion.
That's why Vince doesn't have a ranking system, because he just goes with who's hot. He goes with who's not injured. He goes with who's fresh, who's making something, or who he decides that he wants to light a fire under their ass that day. And then in 2 weeks, he decides that he doesn't want to do it anymore. And then he can do that, and nobody goes, oh. But when they're the number 1 ranked tag team, and then they're going to lose to Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus in a few weeks probably, then what?
Right. You bring up another point. Man, this train is all over the fucking tracks, Brian. We're going to tip over soon. If you have a number 1 ranked team, shouldn't it be in your head that this number 1 ranked team could possibly beat the tag team champions and carry the belts?
Right. So flip the script on that and say FTR is your number 1 ranked tag team. And
let's imagine.
Let's imagine that that's possible. I mean, we know that they are not good enough to be ranked in anything. They get to carry around the plastic foam AAA tag team championships and play make-believe. They're allowed to do that on TV. But they can't do that. So now they're the number 1 ranked tag team. You would believe that they could go beat Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus. You could buy that. You
Definitely.
could go, they're going to fight the number 1 ranked tag team. Did you see the number 1 ranked tag team, Eric? They're putting FTR as number 1. They're getting the title shot. You'd be like, fuck. This could be it. They could be putting the straps on them. Flip it back the other way. we're at bowling next Wednesday, and I go, dude, the Gun Club made it to number 1. And they're going to get a tag team championship match. And you go, oh, all right. So that's just a waste of my time. It's going to be on the pre-show or it's on Dark or something because they're not going to win.
There's no way.
Nothing against the Gun Club yet. They're just not there yet.
Right. Right now, if you booked a match with the tag team champions, Jungle Boy and Dushasaurus, with the Gun Club's not going over. There's no way I would bet my life on it.
Yeah. So that's just it. You're right. It doesn't go for the believability that it's going to happen. Even if even knowing wrestling is not real, predetermined. You go, well, they're not going to beat them. Why would they do that? That doesn't make any sense. They're not even over like that. So it's whatever.
Yeah, it would. Yeah.
Just let it go, Tony. Let it go.
A fart in the wind. But let's get back on track here because let's get to the point of this match. The point of this match was FTR just putting on a fucking clinic.
Sure.
Gun Club got in some offense and they were going ham on Cash for a minute until Dax gets in and he goes to work all over the Gun Club. And then Brian, so that was FTR's point in this match, was to get over, put on a clinic, show what wrestling is. But then the actual point of this match showed up, and that was that Wardlow is in the building. He's been banned from all AEW events, but Wardlow is in the building and blasting through 7 or 8 security guards one by one before getting down to the floor.
Yeah. One of the security guards, as he came through the crowd, through the bowl, down the steps, he had like green dreadlock type deals in his hair there. That's a independent wrestler named Facade. And so a lot of those boys, clearly, T-shirt security being hired for extras. God bless him. But he even posted it on his Instagram and said, hey, look at me. I made it on TV.
Look at me. I played a security guard. Back in the 80s or 70s, he would have been blackballed from the business if he did that shit. Put out a memo. Hey, look, I played a security guard at a wrestling show.
Sure. Yeah. They would be like, oh, we don't want to hear from you ever again, guy. But yes, this is what all about, is to bring Wardlow in and chase off MJF, who was at commentary cheering on his buddies FTR.
Yeah, and Wardlow gets swarmed by the security and escorted out. And then back to the match, Billy Gunn is getting involved, trying to help out his sons. Cash Wheeler leapfrogs over Dax, knocks Billy Gunn off the apron. FTR hits the big rig. And this is just where the well-oiled machine is just on full display, Brian. Cash Wheeler, after hitting the big rig with Dax, is in the perfect spot to keep whatever ass boy's not getting pinned right now, to keep him from interfering, holding him by the ankle so he can't slide into the ring. And Dax gets the pin on this one. And then we play more into the MJF, FTR uncomfortability going on right now.
Yeah, I thought that it ended well, or it ended right. That the 1, 2, 3 getting there was a little rough, with Billy Gunn holding the hands of his partner, or of his son, and then the other Cash Wheeler leapfrogging Dax, and then hitting. It was just, there was so much going on, convoluted, so much timing that had to be perfect. It was just should have went for the swing, missed, or not got involved and just let it end. But overall, what are you going to do?
Yeah, FTR's point, it took a lot of timing, and it was convoluted, but they were right where they needed to be at the right time. And God bless them for being able to do that with the greenbacks here, the Gun Club. But MJF comes down, grabs Dax's shoulder. Dax reacts very negatively. And then we get a heated argument between MJF and FTR. And we're back to the old Wardlow MJF dynamic here. Just
adding the friction.
They're splitting up. We'll just get there eventually.
Sure. Get there eventually. Or, one way or another, yes, it has to go that way. And push MJF to the moon is what needs to happen.
We go to a Keith Lee, Powerhouse Hobbs pre-tape hype video going on with them talking trash about each other. And are they facing each other tonight on Rampage?
I do not know. I mean, I can do a quick Google search. I got the Google machine here in front of me if we want to see.
Yeah, you might as well do that because I do remember during this whole thing, Ricky Stocks and Hobbs talking about how Rampage is their show, and so I would imagine if we're gonna see Keith Lee and Powerhouse Hobbs going at it, and it's not on pay-per-view, it's probably gonna be on a Friday night.
Yeah, so let's see here. We've got Rampage. Go ahead.
Yeah, so April Fool's Day Rampage, if they put this out there against the WWE Hall of Fame ceremony, against SmackDown on their Friday night show that doesn't draw nearly as many viewers as Dynamite, if they give you the Keith Lee Powerhouse Hobbs match, there's no other way to say it other than Tony Khan is a fucking fool.
Well,
because he could base a whole ass pay-per-view around this match.
You already said it. Tony Khan is a fucking fool, so we don't have to go ahead and repeat yourself because, my friend, that match was happening tonight on Rampage at 10 p.m. on TNT or TBS or whatever channel they're on these days.
I understand they're trying to draw eyeballs, but this is a pay-per-view match if it was booked correctly.
It's a pay-per-view match booked correctly. It's a great match booked any which way you want to do it. But what it is not a show-stealing match that is going to take people and go, we won't watch the SmackDown before the pay-per-view tomorrow. This isn't a go-home show for Sunday. I mean, they're going home for tomorrow. On top of that, they got the Hall of Fame going on. On top of that, there's Ring of Honor, his own company now, Tony Khan, that is putting on their first pay-per-view back after almost going out of business.
What more can you say? If booked correctly, this thing could highlight, if not main event, a pay-per-view. But this thing was not booked correctly, is very rushed, very short-sighted, and then they decide to put it up against the go-home SmackDown and the Hall of Fame ceremony and the Ring of Honor first pay-per-view since they closed their doors.
Here's an idea.
Nobody's going to see this fucking match.
Here's an idea. You know where you could have put it? On the Ring of Honor pay-per-view. You own the company.
Mind blown, Brian Rampa.
You could have teased that. We'll take this to the Ring of Honor. We're going to put it over here, baby. They put Swerve Strickland over there. He's got a match tonight in Ring of Honor.
That very much
that would have been
should have happened.
They could have worked right towards that. They could have easily worked right towards that, and then people would have really wanted to get involved with that. But all right, so the waters stay muddied, my friend, and we shall move on.
The confusion continues right into the Jericho Appreciation Society backstage segment.
I am sick of this shit. I am sick of this shit.
Eagle-eyed Redditor pointed out that what's the Fat 2.0 guy's name? Mac Daddy Matt or something like that.
Yeah.
Daddy Fat Sacks. Just if you're watching the Jericho Appreciation Society and you just tune out Jericho, you tune out Jerry Garcia, and you just watch Fat Matt, you just watch his stupid Play-Doh face just bend and contort and repeat words that Jericho says under his breath and chew
gum like it's a gimmick.
Like Mr. Perfect. Like I'm waiting for him to spit it in the air and smack it into the ground.
He couldn't do that if he wanted to. He'd fail miserably.
But if you just hit the mute button and you watch Fat Matt,
it's a good time.
Not for the right reasons, but for all the wrong reasons. It's one of the most entertaining segments on an AEW show.
It's a fucking blast. Being reported here in the chat, this coming in, Mr. Good friend of the show, Andrew, reports Samoa Joe has returned to Super Card of Honor, and he says that they may want to get an extra chair for catering now. So yes, big old Samoa Joe is ready to go at Ring of Honor, which is really no surprise to anybody that he's going to be involved there, as he's pretty much one who made that company famous.
Yeah, slow Moa Joe.
He was always a fan of us chanting that at him.
Yes, he loved it. So Fat Matt tells Jake Hager to take a peek behind the curtain. And who's hiding behind that curtain, Brian? It is none other than Proud and Powerful, Santana and Ortiz with Eddie Kingston.
Yeah.
And immediately the JAS is jumped by the Hispanic Hit Squad.
Hispanic Hit Squad. This was so stupid because they did this same thing last week. The JAS was backstage going, they're not here. Look, I'll look behind the curtain. And then you're waiting for this moment to happen. Okay, you got us. And then they do the same exact thing this week. So you know it didn't happen last week. If you go for it a second time and it doesn't happen, that's ballsy, and you're running the chance of like people not getting it. And it not being funny or great when it does happen. But they didn't. They stuck to true wrestling, the way it should be, and there they were. Da-da-da-da. Nobody's seen them all day, right? They've been there since 2 p.m., and nobody saw the Hispanic Hit Squad hanging out.
And then this just turns into a big mud show brawl. Everyone fighting in every corner of the arena. They eventually make it down to the ring. Jericho gets a spinning back fist from Eddie Kingston, and these guys just fight every which way, using the ring posts, using the stairs, running into guardrails. It's just a big shit show, Brian, until finally, after what seems like forever, the heels eventually win out on this thing, and JAS comes out on top.
Sure, the sports entertainers got to get over, man. And they're going to bring it home, and really make you want to see them get beat up. Doing their job, yes.
And one other thing about this whole JAS sports entertainer gimmick that hurts my brain is Jerry Garcia. I think he's the one who always says this, and it just makes no sense. And maybe that's the point because they're so over the top. But he tries to make a point that pro wrestlers aren't nearly as tough as sports entertainers. And that just, with the words involved, is a complete oxymoron. Why would, in any world, actors, entertainers, be tougher than pro wrestlers? But that's Jerry Garcia's whole gimmick.
Yep.
There's no way a bunch of pro wrestlers could ever beat up the sports entertainers like us. That sentence doesn't make sense. The word entertainer is in it.
Yeah, well, you said it yourself. Moron was in your description, so we'll just move on with the oxypad moron himself and continue on with this.
Moving on to the green-haired moron, Jade Cargill is in the back with Tony Schiavone and Mark Sterling.
Yeah.
And Cargill's 30th match, Brian, will be, it was originally booked to be against the librarian chick who main events Dark once in a while, I guess. But that's not good enough for Jade Cargill. Jade Cargill needs somebody tougher than that, and she will be taking on Marina Ari Shafir. We had a pre-tape for Marina Shafir here, and she looks like a legitimate badass. She looks like a Wish.com version of Rhea Ripley to me, but she's going to be a tough chick, and I don't know, Brian. When you just put them side by side, it looks like this could be an entertaining, tough chick match, but as green as Cargill is, and as green as Marina Shafir is, this is just going to be a sloppy botch fest, and God will be on their side if one of them doesn't come out paralyzed.
Sloppy botch fest. Yeah. Well, I got nothing to disagree or you said it all. I've got nothing to disagree with you with. It's this drizzling shits and what happened back in the ring.
Back in the ring, we're getting Bryan Danielson taking on Wheeler Yuta. And this is where we get William Regal on commentary, and he once again acknowledges the man in the mask.
The man in the mask, Excalibur. And, they got something going with this Wheeler Yuta. They respect him for getting beat up. They respect him for keep showing up, and they respect him for what he possibly has as a professional wrestler. All that being said, I have nothing against Wheeler Yuta. I think he was just being used sloppily and weirdly and thrown into the best friends gimmick and whatever. So can he be somebody? Hell, I don't know. Get out there and do something. He stopped hanging around with fools for a while, so maybe you can if you get mixed up with the likes of Regal, Danielson, and Moxley.
You pretty much just summed up my entire notes section on this one, Brian. Wheeler Yuta, props to him for being able to keep up with Bryan Danielson with the slew of submissions, holds, and reversals that come from a match with Bryan Danielson. And this match was just a prime example of how Wheeler Yuta can work an awesome match without all the goofy best friends bullshit, without the hugging in the middle of the match, without just goofy gimmicks and dancing around in the middle of the ring, or the putting your hands in your pocket shtick of the whole best friends aura that goes on. As long as Wheeler Yuta stays away from them and works with guys who actually know what they're doing, like Bryan Danielson, guys like Wheeler Yuta can put on a fucking great match.
Sure. It's as easy as that. It's as simple as that. Just, he's a good wrestler, and he's going to be mixed up with good guys, and all of a sudden, iron sharpens iron, and there you go. You're building, potential long-living superstars, professional wrestlers that are going to go on and, have a lineage and tell a story.
And this match was, like I said, entertaining. It's cool to see Wheeler Yuta show off what he can do and gain a little respect. He, on the acting side of things, he is going against the man of violence, Bryan Danielson, here by spitting in his face. And for his trouble, Brian, for his pride, he gets his head kicked in and gets submitted rather quickly by the American Dragon.
Yeah, he kicked his head in and then put him in a submission, and then the poor kid was essentially in the story unconscious and done from getting kicked in the face repeatedly. So,
we get another talking segment here, and Adam Cole and Red Dragon come out with the AEW championship and the tag team belts that they stole, duct tape over the nameplates there, and as skinny as Adam Cole is, the incredible shrinking man, he and Red Dragon are still entertaining as fuck.
Oh yeah,
they're doing their championship celebration.
They got the box with 3-4 balloons in it that they open up and they blow away. It was just classic. It was just funny stuff.
Yeah, and this is a prime example of there can be comedy in wrestling.
Yeah,
and it still makes sense and fits into the show. It doesn't all have to be goofy, gimmicky shit.
It doesn't have to be ham-handedly shoved in and go, look, this is funny, laugh now. And then this is serious. Like, you have 3 very serious wrestlers that can do wrestling in the ring, professional wrestling, and can also sports entertain.
Right. Once again, there's no problem goofing off.
Look at DX. That's all they were. They were hilarious, but we knew Shawn Michaels would super kick your fucking head off and be the champion at the drop of a hat.
Right. If you can be a true professional and you know what you're doing in the ring, you're allowed to goof off. That's just the way life works in general.
Yeah.
If you're good at your job, you can goof off and everyone's like, he's cool.
Fuck it, I like that guy. But all you do is goof off and nothing gets accomplished. You're like, what the fucking Joker over here doing? He's fucking bugging me.
Exactly. I can't believe that epiphany just came to me. No matter what work, I don't care if you're a fucking mailman. If you're putting letters in the wrong mailbox every day,
but tell a good joke.
because you stink at the at the job, nobody's gonna like you when you're just standing around with your thumb up your ass and
Yeah.
goofing off. You're a piece of shit. But
Put the right
if
shit
you're
in the
sorting
mailbox.
packages, yeah, if you're sorting packages like a madman and everything's hitting the right spot on time or early, and everything's perfect and accurate, and all your address forwards are are put in the correct spots, yeah, you can stand around the water cooler and tell a dirty joke every now and again, and people are gonna think you're a cool guy.
Hey, this guy's the fucking cat's pajamas over here.
So yeah, that's what were we calling them, Brian? What was Red Dragon and Adam Cole's AEW name that friend of the show Andy came up with?
Shit, I don't know, Andy. If you're still in the chat, you're gonna have to not the undisputed, unrefutable.
Unrefutable era, maybe.
Something like that.
Write that in, Andy. And then the exact opposite of Red Dragon and Adam Cole, Adam Page pulls up in a Tesla with fucking bull horns on it, and it's just like ugh, and he just poops on this whole segment by him showing up.
He's the He's the urban cowboy.
Urban cowboy, the special ed teacher cowboy himself. And the heels retreat, and then they're caught off guard by Dushasaurus and Jungle Boy and Christian, and they get beat up.
Yeah, get beat up.
Well, on to the next segment.
Sure. It was going good, and we've lost it, right?
It was going good, and then it just derailed and turned into trash. Schiavone brings out Thunder Rosa to come down for an interview, and Thunder Rosa's heated, Brian. She really wants a piece of Nyla Rose, and that's that.
And there you go. And Nyla Rose will accept, and you'll have the match. You're the champion. It should go the other way around is the way this segment should have went. It should have been Nyla Rose first, demanding she gets a title shot, and then Thunder Rosa being the champion, saying, I'm a fighting champion. I'll fight you. She can be the babyface and still accept challenges.
Yeah, why is the babyface champion?
Why would you want to wrestle for lose the title? You get paid more, right? You get better treatment, right? I mean, we're going to kayfabe it up. We'll work in the business here. All of that being said, if you're the champion, you're going, I'm not going to fight anybody. You're going to want to fight as little as possible to hold on to the benefits that come with being the champion. You're out there, I want her. No. I'm just going to sit here with my title and not fight anybody. Thank you.
Speaking of champions who knew how to work that belt, where's Britt Baker?
She was at WrestleCon this week. I saw a picture with her and DDP on Instagram. She was signing autographs, getting some of that WrestleMania money.
Yeah, she lost the belt and decided to take a little vacay.
Sure,
from taking naps and thumbtacks. We go backstage, and FTR's cutting a promo, promoting their Ring of Honor match against the fucking Briscoe boys, the chicken farmers from Delaware. And also on top of that, they're piggybacking. They're taking on all the top stars, Brian. FTR wants to fight the Bucks again to truly prove who's the best tag team in the world. And that little part didn't make too much sense because that was the point of the first match. So why would...
And on top of that, where have the Bucks been?
Yeah. Please tell me Tony Khan probably has them ranked number 2 behind the Ass Boys, even though they haven't wrestled in 6 months.
That's what I'm saying. So it's like, I get it, FTR, the Bucks, they would be the tag teams to mess with, but like, just keep your focus on the Briscoes and just draw the eyes on that pay-per-view and roll with that. Don't mention the Bucks yet.
I'd be... So obviously AEW is the number 2 company out there behind WWE. And that's where FTR belongs. But I think I would be happier with them in Ring of Honor because at least they wouldn't be held back there.
Yeah, in theory, right?
Yeah, theoretically, they wouldn't be held back because, in my opinion, the Young Bucks are the ones holding them back because the Young Bucks have an ego. Let's admit it, Brian. Their ego is out this atmosphere, and they don't want anyone taking their spot as the number one independent style tag team out there.
And even if they don't want to do it, never wrestle again. Like they haven't even wrestled, like you said, in months, and then they still don't want anybody to move on past them. So, but what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do? You know what we're gonna do, Brian? We're gonna go into the Owen Hart Foundation tournament opening match.
No. I don't even know if this is an opening match, is it? I thought this was just to get your name in the tournament.
Oh, I thought, whatever. I'm not paying that much attention, obviously.
So
but Tony Khan
yeah.
is putting all his fucking chickens in his hat in this one, because fucking he is. He's got his ducks in a row, his eggs in a basket, chicken in a hat. He has been putting this tournament over like
Rover
crazy, and he's making the commentators do it and everything. And it's just, you and I have been watching this shit way too much and way too long. It's just going to be a fart in the wind.
Well,
it's but you know, a dud.
Clearly the AEW listens to the podcast, listens to the show here, because we bitched about the last women's title tournament where we thought it ended 3 times before it finally did. Like legitimately we're sold. Like they got to finish this, right? Or they did or they didn't. What happened here? They announced that there's an end date to this one. It is going to be in May. It'll be at the pay-per-view, the Double or Nothing pay-per-view in May. So at least there's an end date in sight. We can see something that's going to go down, that there is an end date in sight. Now, mind you, this is the 1st of April that we're speaking of this. So there is 2 months of this pay-per-view, or of this tournament planned to end at the next pay-per-view.
Still better than the TBS Championship tournament, man. That took legit 6 months.
That still might be happening. I don't know if it officially ended.
I don't know. But unfortunately, Tony Khan's going to piss all over Owen Hart's legacy by attaching his name to this. It's the same as the Andre the Giant Battle Royal Spectacular that they have in Saudi Arabia every year. Or the Mae Young Classic. Like, just because you attach a Hall of Famer's name to some sort of stupid tournament doesn't make it worth anything.
No.
And unfortunately,
all of that shit.
Props to Owen Hart, but man, this tournament's going to be flatter than a plate full of piss.
Yeah, 100% agree. And but the big pop for this was Toni Storm, right?
Yeah, Toni Storm in great shape. Not nearly as thick as she was, which is a slight disappointment for me. But she's changed her outfit up a little bit. She's coming out dressed like fucking Motley Crue and fucking bedazzled leather pants.
Got even got the little the linebacker eye thing going on there, which Motley Crue rocked for a bit.
Yeah, she comes out, and unfortunately she's got to work with the Bunny, who's improved. I'll give her that she's improved, but she's still not a professional wrestler.
The best part about this was Excrement and they're fighting. Now, Bunny is wearing white shorts and a white top. Toni Storm is wearing black pants and I believe a black top as well. So very easy to tell the difference. Both blondes. Toni Storm, new to the company. Bunny's been there for basically the entire time this company's existed.
Right.
And Excrement says, the Bunny goes down with the pink eyeshadow. We know. We know. One, they're wearing offsetting colors, so you could say Bunny in the white. If you want to call it like an MMA boxing match, whatever. If you want to call it like a real, combat sports where you're calling them by their trunks colors and things along those lines, roll with it, run with it, go with white if you're going to break it down for the casual fan. But to use the pink not eyeliner, eyeshadow, I'm not a girl here. I
legit missed that, but that's how Excrement designated who was who in this match, by what color their eyeshadow was.
Yeah, pink eyeshadow, the one with the pink eyeshadow. You could just say
Yeah.
the bunny in white.
Maybe it's Maybelline, Brian.
Maybe it's
You
Maybelline.
don't know.
The only, and then I don't know if you really want to break down onto too much of this match here. It was standard at best, nothing amazing. The part that bothered me the most was Toni Storm's win. Why does it have to be like that? Why does Ruby Soho, speaking of people that have disappeared off of TV and were the biggest thing next to sliced bread in AEW, where the fuck is she at? But like, she was famous for this too for a while. Like, oh my God, I can't believe I won. Well, listen, bitch, if you can't believe you won, me neither. And why am I going to care after a while?
Where did she go?
And so, like,
Ruby Soho.
When Toni Storm wins, she's like almost gonna cry, and you're like, you were off TV for like 4 weeks. You started an OnlyFans. You made a bunch of money. You're signed to another company. Clearly, you already knew that was gonna happen. Life didn't get hard for you. You weren't in the gutter and pulled yourself up by your bootstraps. You just had a little hitch in your giddy up for a few weeks, and you couldn't wrestle on TV.
Got a small vacation.
Nobody forgot about you. It isn't like oh my God, like there's 2 months of this tournament left. You can't cry after every match.
And that kills me, Brian, because watching this match, you know how this match was booked and put together was that so the bunny could not look like shit being in the ring with a true professional wrestler like Toni Storm. It's basically strikes and then a few moves here and there. So a couple chicks throwing forearms at each other and kicks. And every now and again, they'll put in a wrestling move. You see a decent looking Death Valley driver from Bunny, even though Toni Storm landed a little wonky. Nobody's really selling shit. Toni Storm showing her selling ability on the second super kick from Bunny here. She just does that vertical, don't bend your legs, fall back. That was kind of cool. But directly after that, Toni Storm hits a German suplex and a Storm Zero and gets the 1, 2, 3 over the Bunny here. But yeah, you hit the nail right on the head. This match was booked obviously to kind of get the Bunny through a match with someone who actually knows what they're doing. But oh no, it's a big surprise. I'm lucky to be here. Oh my God, I can't believe I won Toni Storm.
Yeah.
Where any booker in the business, this would have been a squash match.
Sure. Yeah, there was it essentially was and should have been and just moved on. It would have made more sense. And like, she should have came out and even as a babyface, still been more cocky and like, I'm here. I told you I was back. I was never gone. I'm Toni Storm. I'm here to wrestle. Not the, oh my God, I made it. You made it. This is like if this is going to go for 2 months, this is a 32 bracket system we got to go through here. You're going to doing a lot of, I made it to round 6, like, of this tournament. So it's going to take a lot out of you there, Tony, if you're going to make it to the end. So that part just bugged me. But
I think you just lit a fire under my ass with the Ruby Soho thing, Brian. I think I'm going to do another fantasy draft thing here to go through and see if I had a guest spot as a booker in AEW, who I would cut from TV altogether and who I would actually feature on a 2-hour show. Because yeah, the fact that this was our lead-in to the main event is redonkulous.
Yeah, and then our main event was a little weird as it was. So you've got Andrade El Idolo taking on dickhead in the face paint. The heck's his name? Darby Allin.
Darby Allin. Well, yeah, right before that we got just a little quick promo from Vicky Guerrero and Nyla Rose here, and
this should have been Thunder Rosa's promo accepting the challenge, not the but they, it's AEW.
I'm gonna tread lightly on this, but man, I wasn't looking up at the screen, and when Vicky Guerrero and Nyla Rose were cutting their promo, and the thought that was going through my head was like, who's this dude with Vicky Guerrero? Because that voice, I do. You be you, but at least play the role of a female and suck some helium or fucking squeeze your nuts to get a little higher voice or something out of there. But Nyla Rose sounded like James Earl Jones when she's on the mic.
Good thing you treaded lightly and didn't want to. I'd hate to see you dive in.
Didn't offend anybody.
Nonetheless, Nyla
voice,
Rose
man.
accepts the match, and who'd have thought when you're challenged with a tag or with a women's championship match, not many ever decline. When the champion goes, "I want you," and you're like, "Nah, not me. I'm not good enough. I couldn't be champion." So,
Yeah.
she accepted said match, and that'll happen eventually. I don't know if they even got to a point of where it'll happen or when, but it'll just happen.
And our main event, Darby Allin and Andrade Idolo, and
In
Brian.
an AEW rules match, this was Andrade comes out first, and then you get Darby following him out. Obviously, next is introduced as Darby. He skateboards to the ring, and you catch off first, right off the bat, a triple Lindy off the ropes there. He does like a triple spinning dive onto your boy, Darby, and the match is off and running. Or is it? The match is not off and running. Both men were not inside the ring. That means this match cannot start. Bryce Remsburg ain't having none of it. He ain't ringing the bell till there's two guys in the ring. But when they ring the bell, they're allowed to fight on the outside. But you can't fight on the outside and ring the bell. It doesn't go the other way.
Don't you know, Brian, a triple tornado Greg Louganis over the top rope is not what it takes to start the match. There needs to be 4 feet planted firmly in the squared circle to start this match.
Yeah, and there you go. And that didn't happen for a while.
Poor JR, man. Poor JR having to watch this match. He's hoping his clinical results went the other way after watching this match, man. He is not loving life. We are forced to watch a 6 or 7 minute brawl outside of the ring.
They almost were going to have to go to commercial during a match that hasn't started yet.
Yeah. Excrement. This is after Darby Allin has been thrown over the guardrail. He's been slammed on the ring steps. He's been beat essentially to a pulp. And Excrement chimes in and says, "We got to get the guys in the ring so the bell can ring." And in what world would this match be allowed to go on after that physical assault from Andrade on the outside of the ring?
In a world of AEW where they have nothing planned to go on after it.
This match, if you wanted any legitimacy in your company, this match couldn't go on after that happened. So therefore, you don't have a fucking 8-minute beatdown of a big muscular Mexican beating the shit out of a pale 110-pound skateboarder on the outside. You don't have them beat the shit out of them for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And they go, you know what, guys, let's start this match.
And by the way, as I'm watching it, I noticed, I'm like, damn, Andrade looks jacked. Like, he's looking thick. And then they were like, Andrade's, saying how much weight that he's put on, and he's all the way up to 240 and da-da-da-da-da. And I was just thinking the same thing. I'm like, this guy looks enormous these days. And compared to Darby Allin, he's looking like a cow wrestling a bull.
Jesus. It's like a baby deer taking on a raging bull. And Darby gets a little offense on the outside. He gets a swing with a kendo stick, I think, at one point. But Andrade eventually just slams Darby Allin onto the steel steps, and Tony Schiavone sells that by saying it's the diamond steel plating, Brian. You
Yes.
know, that texture.
It adds to
That
the
texture
strength.
really fuck you up.
Yeah, that adds to the structural integrity of the device there.
And ultimately, Darby Allin gets in the ring and tells Bryce Rimjob, start the match. And yeah. Uh, and the majority of this match is just Andrade throwing Darby around like a rag doll.
I did like that because it made sense.
That was the only part of this match that made sense. Because after that, we got to get Darby his comeback. Andrade's got Darby Allin up in a razor's edge position, and nice demonstration of strength here. We're
Sure.
going to get a nice little crucifix power bomb. Somehow, 110-pound Darby Allin reverses a razor's edge into a code red, which is ultimately a Canadian destroyer on a 240-pound Andrade.
And the best part of this is the commentators scream, how did he do that? And you know what? That is a damn good question, my friend, because we were all thinking that at home. How did he do that? And, well, we'll never know how they did that, but it happened. He defied all laws of physics.
All laws. Sir Isaac Newton is spinning a tornado DDT in his grave right now.
Yeah, and then kicks out of it, too. Andrade kicks out of it. So there's amazing gravity-defying move here, and Andrade can kick out of it.
And you were speaking on your migraine headache that you were experiencing this morning, Brian, and I was experiencing during this match, because at one point in this match, the most over part of this match, where the audience was going ape shit, the audience was going banana, was when Darby Allin and Andrade got into a full-on teenage girl slap fight. I'm talking just slap, slap, slap.
Oh, that was pretty. I knew you were hating it. When I was watching that part, I go, oh, God, Eric's mad.
Duck and cover, sloppy, just back and forth, open hand slaps. It legitimately looked like cheerleaders fighting over a spot on the team. And the crowd is going ape shit over this.
They did eat it up.
And it's... what can you do? How can you want wrestling to be legitimate and you offer them up CM Punk versus MJF, you offer them up Punk versus Dax Harwood, you offer them up amazing Moxley versus Danielson, and they love that,
but they also love this.
But then they also love a slap fight between Darby Allin and Andrade.
Yeah.
This audience is just incredibly dense.
Well, they're the same audience that'll sing along to a song of a bad guy, then boo him during the match.
Right. It's just fun and games and goofy spots for these people, and it's discouraging.
Yeah, I got nothing else to say. It was ugly. It was stupid, and yeah, it sucked.
And we see a collar and elbow tie up like 15 minutes into the match, and JR chimes in and says, "Well, they finally did something wrestling."
Yeah, he's like, they finally did a wrestling move. They tied up for a minute.
Yeah. And Darby Allin hits a stunner for a 2 count, and excrement. His pants are sticking to his thighs at this point. And Darby turns through a crucifix off the top rope. This is another one. This is on the same level of the Razor's Edge we saw earlier. Andrade has Darby Allin on his shoulders, and he's just going to kind of do a crucifix backdrop off the top rope. Darby manages to use his momentum to completely spin Andrade around.
Sure. I mean, how could you not?
And Andrade's on the bottom now.
Yeah. Duh.
The magic momentum of Darby Allin here. And then this thing just gets worse, Brian. I I'm at the point where how can this thing get any shittier, any sloppier, any more overdone, any more convoluted? And that question is answered quite quickly, because then we get Sting, Jose the manager,
Yeah.
Butcher, and the Blade coming down, so that we can just turn this into a shit show brawl.
Not even really. It barely gets into the brawl, and Darby Allin dives on everybody and knocks them all down.
Oh, he had to get his shit in.
But that was it, though. That was all they ever. They never even went back to them. Once they fell down,
It's true.
Darby Allin fell on me. I ain't standing back up. Can you imagine you're gonna fight with another guy, Sting. You're telling me Sting, a grown man, whether he be in his 70s or not, Sting gets older and older every week. And the Butcher and the Baker are down there as well, and they all fall down. They're not mad anymore. They're like, oh, yeah, we're just going to lay here now. They just get totally eliminated. They're foot soldiers from the Ninja Turtles Nintendo game when you'd kick them and fight them, and then they'd fall down and they'd flash, and then they'd go away.
Yeah, this is a video game. Darby had to get his shit in. He lands on the Butcher and the Blade, and they're out for the count. These are professional wrestlers, Brian, that can take 14 Canadian destroyers into a pile of kendo sticks and thumbtacks.
Kick out for two.
They'll kick out for two. But 110-pound Darby Allin landing in your arms ever so gently, and you're done.
You're done.
You're out for the count.
Now, the good news is it turned itself around, and he comes back in the ring. And basically, I forget what Andrade's finishing move is here, but you finish us off here.
How could you forget, Brian? However could you forget that Andrade Idolio's finishing move is called the Idolio?
Oh, that's right. It was. I'm like, this goddamn name.
Andrade wins with the Ideolo, and then Sting gets jumped by the Butcher, the Blade, Jose, and Ideolo, and Private Party. We just keep throwing ingredients into this cake batter, and we're going to get something eventually, I guess.
Well, then, hey, you know what? We're throwing ingredients on. Let's throw the cherry on top, kick on the Hardy Boys music, and send those sons of bitches down. And we'll dance our way to the ring to save you.
I was hoping Jeff Hardy was going to dance during his entrance, but we weren't treated to such things. But let's just rewind and fast forward right here. This is supposed to be Darby Allin versus Andre Ideolo, and we get a 10-minute brawl before the match. And then in this one-on-one match, we get Sting, Darby Allin, Jose the manager, Butcher, Blade, Mark Quinn, Isaiah Cassidy, Jeff Hardy, and Matt Hardy.
Yeah,
and then we end the show on a very stiff, poor Mark Quinn, a very stiff Jeff Hardy swanton bomb.
Yeah, I think what they're trying to recreate is that Monday Nitro WWE Monday Night Raw feel back from the 90s of there's so much chaos, we're going off the air, oh my god, we can't stay on, we've got silk stockings coming up next. And then they're going off the air while there's a brawl in the ring still going on, right? And oh my god, I gotta watch this some more. But it's just not coming across that way. Because for one, they never go off the air with it. They should have went off the air when Jeff Hardy was climbing the turnbuckle.
Yeah. That would have got people stirred up and riled up.
I mean, imagine that. You cut that off before that motherfucker jump, or when their music hits. And then you've got content for now, which didn't even exist then, but now you've got content for the web. Right? You've got social media content. Boom, it hits Instagram after that. You go live on your social right afterwards or during so you can see them come out. Their music hit, they're dancing at the top. They go off the air on TNT. Your Instagram lights up and says the AEW has gone live. Fuck me. Let me swipe up on that bitch and see what they're doing and finish the show. Finish it on our Instagram. We're going live on TikTok. You get Tony Schiavone screaming it as they go off the air, but they don't do any of that. They just give it to y'all right there.
Yeah,
And
we just get a bunch of randos beating each other up. And
that was it, man. That
Jeff
was
Hardy Swanton.
Jeff Hardy Swanton crushing Mark Quinn's rib cage and lungs, and he should be back fighting good as new next week. But that's the podcast. That's AEW Dynamite. That's how we wrap this thing up. It was a big clusterfuck of a show.
Yeah, this Nighthall, Catch Your Z's, and Chaos all at the same time.
Yeah,
just didn't know where to go.
Didn't know where to go. It was very ADD driven this week. So nonetheless, that was the show. Their show made us ADD driven, and that's our podcast. Make sure you guys jump into all the social media, hang out with us there, talk about some professional wrestling. Hit us up, the KayFabe Smark across the board. Subscribe, like, and share on YouTube. Hit that notification bell. You can see when we can go live. And now I pass it to Eric to see what he has to say before we get out of here on a Friday night.
Well, I got nothing else to say, Brian, besides Happy April Fool's Day, everybody. So for you, Brian, for the resident Snooze and Pitbull, Stella Marie, and for myself, all I got to say is hooty hoo, we out the gates.